Well, for those of you who have been following along on the forum with our 944 the 6-liter V8 project, you will know that we had a little problem with the torque tube in the car, and that requires removing the transaxle, removing the rear suspension, and then removing the torque tube and all that fun stuff. So there's the rear suspension in a whole bunch of pieces. It's we're in the process of rebuilding it right now. We have getting ready to start test fitting the torsion bars. The red one's a 30 millimeter sway away solid torsion bar. The black one is the original one. You can see how much bigger it is. So definitely a much higher spring rate than the original one. Original one, I believe, is 24 millimeters. This here's the spring plate. It goes in like that, and there are splines down in there that accept this end of the torsion bar, and in the torque tube on the other end, in the center there, where that cast iron part is the splines that receive this end. These are two different amounts of splines. What that does is allow fine adjustment of the rear ride height via the two different spline ratios. So you can, if you're too low, you can back it clockwise on this side, you know, up maybe 7 in the rear and back maybe 4 or 3 or 5 on the front, and you can get nice incremental steps in ride height. So what we're going to do right now is, well, what we did before we removed the spring plate on both sides, so we scribed this mark on this wing here, so we should, to get the car back to somewhere near the stock ride height, or the ride height that it was at before we took it apart, we're going to assemble it so that the spring plate comes up and meets this scribe mark. Also, we're going to put new rubber bushings on the spring plate. That's the spring plate end cap, so rubber bushings go in there. Basically, this goes on here with the spring plate already assembled and the torsion bar in. So that's where we are. We need to get all that done before we can move further with the project. We're going to be replacing some of the other bushings. These are the control arm bushings here. Well, control arm bushings go in there. They connect right here onto the torsion bar tube, and that's what the wheel mounts to. We're replacing these with Elephant Racing Spherical bearings, and we're replacing the front mounts with these ones here with Delrin bearings, Delrin bushings, and that should also, there's a mount that goes here. We're replacing that with a solid steel one, and this one that goes on here is going to be an aluminum one, so that will hold the torsion bar tube to the car very, very rigidly. Normally all those bushings are rubber, and they're probably not the greatest thing for a V8 conversion. So basically the idea is to solidly mount the tube and the spring plate ends to the vehicle, and instead of rubber for the actual spring plate here, instead of being solid for the actual spring plate, we're going to use rubber. That way we'll retain some of the initial movement ride quality of the spring, well, the torsion bar. So it will be a decent street car to drive rather than just a harsh race car kind of ride. But it will still have good road holding capability and also be acceptable for, you know, daily driving. And it's about where we are with this project. Hopefully in the next few days we'll get this all back together. I still have to remove the torque tube from the car. There's just 3 little cross members in there that hold it up now. Everything else is disconnected. I got another torque tube. It's right there, and that long ominous thing with the box on the end of it is the torque tube that I got back. I sent it down to Black Sea Research and Development to have them rebuild it. It has 4 new super bearings in it. They welded the nose and machined it down to the right specification so it fits the pilot bearing perfectly. And they checked everything else, and it's now it's a really good torque tube. Should be able to connect it to this V8 without too much difficulty. But I really want to get the back of the car finished first before we get back onto the engine conversion process. And so far it's been a 2.5 month waylay we've had for this project, and hopefully in the next week or two we'll get back to the engine conversion process.